गणानाम् त्वा गणपतिम् हवामहे कविम् कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजम् ब्रह्मणाम् ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। ॐ वृषभम् चर्षणीनाम् विश्वरूपमदाभ्यम् बृहस्पतिम् वरेण्यम् ॐ तद्विष्णोः परमम् पदम् सदा पश्यन्ति सूरयः दिवि वचक्षुराततम् ॐ श्रीं ह्रीं महालक्ष्म्यै नमः। ॐ नमः शिवाय शिवाय नमो नमः शिवाय च शिवाय नमो नमः शिवाय च शिवाय च शिवाय शिवाय च। ॐ ह्लीं ह्रीं ज्योतिर्ब्राह्माय नमः। Can you say Hare Rama Krishna 3 times after me? Om Hare Rama Krishna Hare Rama Krishna Hare Rama Krishna. Okay. So as far as Parasara is concerned, where are we now? So Ganantas we did. Okay. Avuktamula I think we have to do. Yeah. So we finished the Gandantas, Tithi Gandanta, Nakshatra Gandanta and Lagna Gandanta. Now we have to do the Abhuktamula Shantyadhyayam. This is chapter 93 in Santanam's version. So this is basically remedies from birth in Abhuktamula. Yeah. Okay. Can you be a little loud? Yeah.
Tithi Gandanta and Nakshatra Gandanta.
Yeah.
We have to donate ox, Tithi Gandanta, and Nakshatra Gandanta. We need to donate cow.
Yeah. Actually, ox for Tithi. Yeah, right.
So
cow for Nakshatra.
In this modern world, you can't donate anybody cow. So anybody ox. So what is that?
You can donate. Maybe you can't donate to somebody in US, but you can donate to somebody in India.
But even in natural, like you see, practically,
Yeah.
they do because
No.
it's very practical. They do that.
People do use ox. People do use cow. There are so many people who actually depend on those. If you go to rural India.
Yeah, right.
Even in a city, in Hyderabad, if you say, hey, I will give you a cow, he will say, where in my apartment will I put the cow? So, it may be a problem. But if you go a little further away from cities, people use cows and oxen.
But the idol is like.
What? So, you are suggesting, what if I just donate an idol? You can come up with those alternatives, but you can actually donate real cows and real oxen also to people.
Marriage, he got an actual cow donation.
Mm-hmm.
The other party.
Mm.
He donated the cow also along with the other section and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people still do it. They donate not just one cow, several cows also they donate as part of certain rituals. And you will find decent people who are willing to accept oxen and cows. So it shouldn't be a problem. If you ever should need to do those remedies, you should not have any problem finding people. Actually, even in US, if you go to rural US, you may be able to find people who will be willing to be donated oxen and cows, but the problem is they may eat them, so you should be careful before donating to such people. What?
Yeah, West Virginia, they will accept it.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Jyastha Mulamayo. Jyastha Mulamayor Jasma Dadiphavindra Rakshasau Mahavairatayo Sandhir Mahadosha Pradah Vratah. It says, for the Jyastha and Mula, for those, because the lords are Indra and Rakshasa. Indra is the lord of Jyastha and for Mula the Lord is Rakshasa. So because Mahavairat means due to the great enmity between the Rakshasa, between the demon and Indra, because of that, Tayoh Sandhi Mahadosha Pradasvatah. The Sandhi between those, the joint between those two nakshatras is considered to be Mahadosha Prada. Particularly great, it causes a particularly great problem basically. So out of all the problematic Sandhis, joints that were mentioned earlier, between Tithis, between Nakshatras, between Lagnas, this particular one is this particular Nakshatra Gandanta is the most dangerous one according to Parashara. Abhuktamola Jamputram Putrim Vapi Parityajet Athavabdashtakam Tatas Tanmukham Navilokayet. So what he is saying is, now you can speculate whether this is actually Parashara speaking or somebody else actually put these words in Parashara's mouth later, but what he says is very drastic measures here. What he says is, Abhukta Molajam Putram Putrim Vapi Parityajet. If a child is born in Abhukta Mola, so basically Mola not fully over, basically Mola beginning basically, the first part of Mola. If a child is born, whether boy or girl, doesn't matter. He said Putram Putrim, both. If a boy or girl is born in Abhukta Mola, Parityajet, he says, then give up that child. So it's a very drastic measure. So that is what this text is saying. Parityajet doesn't mean go and put him in a dustbin, in a garbage bin. It could be you basically, give him for an adoption or something like that. Some people even do procedures like they adopt the baby, they give the baby for adoption and then buy the baby back. So there is a particular ritual popular in some parts of India. In some parts of India it's not that popular, but in those parts they do it. So basically you find a very capable Brahmin, you donate the baby to the Brahmin, and then the Brahmin will give you back the baby for some money, like you give 108 rupees or 1000 rupees, some money you give, and then you get back the baby. So what is involved? The karmic implications of, you are smiling, but there are people who do it. The karmic implications of this particular ritual is, it is basically not a sin to give your child for adoption to somebody else. It is a perfectly valid thing to do. But if you have a child, to sell the child is not a good karma. So the Brahmin who takes part in the karma, in the ritual, he basically begets that bad karma. But the child basically, because his father, though adopted father, has ditched him basically, has sold him for money, some of his karma will be relieved. So basically there is a transfer of karma. So some weakness in the chart of the baby will be overcome. Some problems of the baby will basically be taken over by the person who's participating in this particular thing. So only if the person knows this and is willing to take on some karmas from the baby, then only this should be gone through. So such things are possible. When you say Parityajet, it's not literally just put him on the road and then walk away. Athava, but he's saying that's the only way. He's saying Athava, or, so there is a second clause, or, I announced. Chapter 93 in Santanam's version. Yeah. I announced when you were still, your mind, you were roaming around in some astral planes. Athava, Abdashtakam means 8 years. Abdashtakam Tatah Tanmukham na vilokayat. Or for 8 years, Tatah means father. Yes. Father, Tanmukham. Tanmukham means the face of the child. Na vilokayat, should not see. So the West is saying either give up the child or for 8 years don't see the face of the child. It will be a problem because after 8 years, even if you want to see the face, the child may not show the face. Your relationship with the child will be basically gone. But in old days, people used to be very strict about these things and they used to actually do this kind of things. And in really old days anyway, some people used to have multiple wives. So one wife's child, if you don't want to see for 8 years, you go to another wife and spend 8 years somewhere else and then come back. So it wasn't a big deal in old days, but nowadays it's very impractical. Not to see the face is very impractical. So what you can do, what you would rather do is, instead of doing either of these two things, you can just do the Santi that he is going to mention. What he says later is Taddosha Pariharartham atha Santi vidhim bruve Tatrado dosha bahulyan mola Santir nikajyate. So what he is saying is Taddosha Pariharartham, for relief from this particular danger, for relief from this particular weakness, atha, thus Santi vidhim bruve, the way to do the remedial measure I am going to say now. Tatrado dosha bahulyan mola Santir nigadyate. So in the beginning, basically dosha bahulyan mola Santir nigadyate. So because of the multiplicity of the problems here, multiplicity of the dangers, this is basically he is saying that this is a very important dosha, and to get relief from it, the remedial measures is called mola Santi. The relief from this particular dosha is called mola Santi, as you would guess. Janmato dvadashaheva sadruksheva shubhe dine jatasya vashtame varshe Santim kuriyat vidhanatah. So he is saying Janmato, from birthday, dvadashaheva means 12th day. On the 12th day from birth, or tadrukshe va shubhe dine. So tadrukshe is in that sign. So you could interpret it in many ways. The normal interpretation would be in the Janma Rashi. If the person which is basically instead of the 12th day, approximately 29th or 30th day. So when the Janma Nakshatra returns, suppose moon was in, of course moon will be in Mola at the time of birth. So when moon comes back to Mola, you can do it. So that is one way you can interpret it. But all he is saying is in that sign. He doesn't say in what sign. Tadrukshe va shubhedine. And finally he says va shubhedine, or any auspicious day. So always, if you see, that is the consistent theme. For doshas, for Santi from doshas, he always recommends certain timings, and then he says or any auspicious day. And perhaps instead of doing it on the 11th day or 12th day or 21st day, or going by a formula, it's actually not a bad idea to wait for a good day and do it in an auspicious muhurta. It's actually a good idea. Because 11 days are considered to be the T period, a period when you don't do auspicious activities. That's why typically he says 12th day do this. But it's a good idea to, in that neighborhood, you don't want to wait long time, many years for example. You want to do it quickly, but it's a good idea to find a good day in that neighborhood. Basically from the 12th day to, let's say, 20 or 25th day, there should be some good day that you can find. Jatasya vashtame varshe santim kuriyat vidhanata, or jatasya, for the baby, for the newborn baby, ashtame varshe, 8th year, santim kuriyat vidhanata. So or at least in the 8th year of the life of the native, do the Santi. So if you forget to do it, then even when the baby is 7 years of age, basically 7 years finished, 8th year running, then you can do it. So 8th year running, that is the formula.
When you said the 12th day or an auspicious day, if 12th day doesn't happen to be one of the good days that we're in,
then do 13th day, 14th day, 15th day. Basically bottom line is not before the 12th day. Yeah. So 12th day onwards, any good day.
he's giving 8th year because father should not be 8 years.
No, father, yeah. No, I'm not sure if that is the reason. Because he says father should not see for 8 years. And here he is saying do it in the 8th year. So this is basically, this Santi, if you do, whatever was told earlier, basically that becomes void. If you do the Santi, father can see immediately. And father doesn't have to get rid of the child. So I don't know why he said 8th year. Maybe that is the last dangerous year, perhaps. That is why he said up to 8 years don't see the father. So basically in the last year, when still a few more months remain in the dangerous period, that's when you are doing the Santi. Perhaps after the 8th year, there is no point in doing Santi, perhaps. If he in the 9th year, for example, yeah, if nothing happened to father, nothing happened to him, nothing happened to anybody, probably the bad period is over. Susame cha shubhe sthane gomayenopalepite Susame cha shubhe sthane gomayenopalepite Mandapam swagраhat prachya mudityam va prakalpayet. Susame, a level place, a place that is level, not slopey. Shubhe, an auspicious place. That means auspicious place means no direction he mentions later. He just says auspicious here. Basically, there should not be anything inauspicious around that place. Gomayena upalepite. Gomayena means cow dung. With the cow dung, upalepite means smeared with cow dung. Mandapam swagраhat prachya mudityam va prakalpayet. Mandapam, create a mandapam. Create a nice place where you do this puja, and it should be smeared with the cow dung, and it should be either prachya means in the eastern direction, uditya means in the northern direction from the home. Prakalpayet, it should be made. So you should make a nice mandapam in the east or north from the house. Outside, basically outside the house, either in the east or in the north. Chaturdvara samayuktam Toranadjairalankrutam Kundam grahadi yagnartham Tadbahischa prakalpayet Chaturdvara samayuktam Toranadjairalankrutam. So create the mandapam. You know, mandapam means like a pandal. So you should have 4 doors basically. So create this mandapam, make 4 doors to the pandal, and then outside it, Kundam grahadi yagnartham. Make a kundam. That means make a yagnakundam. You can dig and then put bricks around it and then create the yagnakundam where you can do the homam. So make a havanakundam with for grahadi yagnartham. To do homam for grahas, etc. He doesn't say exactly what. He just says grahadi means grahas, etc. Tadbahischa prakalpayet. So it should be outside the pandal. Of course, not in the pandal. You don't want fire in a closed pandal. So make a pandal and outside create this. Suvarnena tadadhena tadardhadhena va punaha. So again he says with gold, half of it or quarter of it, etc. Just like in the previous one. Nakshatra devata arupam kuryat vittanusarataha. So based on your financial capability, create the nakshatra devata rupam. So who's the nakshatra devata for Mula? Rakshasa. So create an idol of Rakshasa. Shyamavarnam mahograncha. Shyamavarnam means black in color. Black or dark grey in color. Mahograncha, very angry looking. Dvishiraskam vrukananam. Dvishiraskam means two-headed. Vrukananam means vruka. You know the word vrukodara? Bhima, for example, is described in some Mahabharata as vrukodara. Vruka basically means a wolf. Wolf is reputed to have a big appetite. That is why vrukodara means somebody who has the appetite. Varam means literally stomach, but also means appetite. So somebody who has the appetite of a wolf. That is why Bhima and such people are called vrukodaras. Anyway, so you should have the face of a wolf, or you can even interpret vruka as just very grave basically. It doesn't have to be literally like a wolf, but how does wolf look? It looks angry and also looks very miserable, looks very terrible. So it can be basically that kind of phrase. That's also what it can mean. Khagga charmadharam tadvad jheyam krunapa, not krunapa, krupana. Jheyam krupanavahanam. Okay. Khagga charmadharam. That means wearing a sword. Charmam. Charmam means skin. So basically a skin should be wrapped around. Skin is the cloth. And then a sword in the hand. Tadvad jheyam krupana vahanam. So the vehicle is basically a dead body. So seated on a dead body, wearing a sword, and also wrapped in skin, and very ugly face, ugly and angry face, two-headed. So this kind of idol you should make with gold, as much gold as you can afford. Suvarnasya cha moolyam va sthapayitva prapujayet. Suvarnam sarvadaivatyam yatah shastreshu nishchitam.
So, black
Pardon me?
black gold, right?
Pardon me?
Is it a black gold or a
Well, the idol can be made in gold, but you can have different color paints on it if you want, for example. Suvarnasya cha moolyam va sthapayitva prapujayet. Suvarnam sarvadaivatyam yatah shastreshu nishchitam. So what he says is, if you can't make an idol, Suvarnasya cha moolyam va sthapayitva prapujayet. Just put some gold there. It doesn't have to be an idol. If you can't make an idol, just put some gold and invoke the god in gold. Suvarnam sarvadaivatyam yatha shastreshu nishchitam. So basically for all gods, gold is capable of carrying various deities. Just like fire is capable of carrying various deities, gold is capable of carrying various deities. So you can just put gold and invoke devatas in that. Invoke various devatas in that. So for that reason, it can just be a gold coin or just a heap of gold. It doesn't have to be an idol. So that is what he says. In case you don't want to spend gold to get a really terrible looking idol made, which is basically useless after this puja, because you probably don't want to keep it in your puja room and do puja every day perhaps. So probably that is why earlier he never said, well, if you don't want to make the idol, just put some gold. He never said it. Now he is saying it explicitly. Acharyam varayet paschat swasti vachana purvakam kalasasthapanam kuryat svagruhyokta vidhanatah. Okay. Acharyam varayet paschat. After that, select the acharya. Select the guru who will do the homam, do the ritual. Swasti vachana purvakam. So swasti vachanam, the homan suktam, that swasti vachanam, basically all the people are reading. While they are reading, you select there are 10 people reading it. Okay, this one I will get the puja done by today. Like that you select. But of course, like we observed earlier also, Parasya keeps assuming that there are so many people that are available to you, and all of them will come and read Swastivachanam and patiently wait for you to select one of them. And if you select this person, that person won't be offended. All that is not true in Kali Yuga. So you better decide your acharya long before, like maybe 2-3 months before, and book him by paying the advance payment. So that is how it works today. Kalasasthapanam kuryat. Basically establish the kalasam svagruhyokta vidhanatah. So what it means is, based on the procedures that you use, based on your procedure, do the kalasasthapana, whatever mantra you do normally for that. Panchagavyadikam kshepyam kalashe tirthavaricha. So in the kalasha, put the panchagavyas, like we mentioned earlier, all the auspicious materials you put. Kshepyam means placed. Kalashe tirthavaricha, and put nice water. Vari literally means water. Tirthavari means good water, basically. Nice drinking water, yes. Shataushadhyadikam tatra shatachhidra ghate chipet. So shataushadhyadikam, shataushadhi adikam. 100 different kind of aushadhis also he is saying put. Tatra shatachhidra ghate chipet. So he is saying put 100 kinds of aushadhis. He doesn't specify which ones those are. And even if you order all the aushadhas, all the herbs that are available on banjanbotanicals.org, you probably may not get 100 herbs. So whatever herbs you have access to, basically put a little bit of different herbs in that. Vamsyapatram cha samsthapya tatra vai paschimāmukham. Vamsyapatram cha samsthapya tatra vai paschimāmukham archaye nirritim devam shukla vastrakshadatibhi. Okay. So Vansyapatra, what is Vansyapatra? Okay, that is one meaning. Is there any other meaning of Vamsha? It has one meaning of Vamsha is bamboo. And another meaning of Vamsha is clay. So he is either talking about a wooden part or clay part basically. So Vansya Patram te Sansthabhya. So also put, apart from the Kalasya, put a clay part or Vansya Patra or wooden part. Tatra vai Paschima Mukham. Yes.
Last year I think we put clay.
Yeah. So it could be clay. Paschima Mukham Acche Niritim Devam Shukla Vastrakshataadibhi. So now the Niriti should be facing Vansya Patram te Sansthabhya Tatra vai Paschima Mukham. So facing the western direction, Archye Niritim Devam Shukla Vastrakshataadibhi. So Niriti should be facing the western direction. So it doesn't mean you have to be facing him. You may be praying to him and Niriti may be facing some other direction. So that is basically, suppose you put in the northern direction. This is east, right? Suppose you are facing north. So Niriti will be facing towards your left. So like that. So Niriti should be facing the western direction. And then pray to Niriti with Shukla Vastrakshatadibhi. Shukla Vastram and Shukla Akshata. So not yellow Akshatas. He is suggesting white Akshatas. And also white cloth. Give a white cloth. Indram Tabhidevam cha Jalam Pratyadhidaivatam. So Adhidevata of Rakshasa is Indra, it seems. And the Pratyadhidevata is Jalam. Jalam means the water gods, Jala Devatas. So you can basically pray to those two also. Swasva Sakhokta Mantrena Pradhanadin Prapujayet. Swasva Sakhokta Mantrena means you using the mantras that were taught in your own branch of Veda. So there are so many different mantras for Indra, for Jala Devatas, for Niriti. So you can use the mantras that were taught in your own Sakha, and then all these important devatas, all these three important devatas, you pray to them. Devadhideva Prityartham Homam Kuryad Yatha Vidhi Ashtottaram Sahasram Va Satam Va Nitendriya. So he is saying Devadhideva Prityartham, to please the Lord of all the gods, which is basically Indra. Homam Kuryat Yatha Vidhi. Using the standard procedure, do a homam. Ashtottaram Sahasram Va Satam Va Netendriya. Either 108 or 1000 or 100 times you do the mantra of Indra in the fire. So which mantra he doesn't say. Maybe Indram Vo Vishwatas Parihavam Hai, which we normally do in Satyanarayan Vratam and various other pujas. It's not really mentioned anywhere. So you could pick any Indra mantra. And like he said earlier, you could pick the mantra from your Shakha, assuming you know what Shakha you belong to. Which is a problem these days. So you can just pick some mantra of Indra. As long as it is some Veda mantra, I think you should be fine. Mrityu prasamanartham cha mantram trayambakam japet prarthayet cha tato devam abhishekaarthamadarat. Mrityu prasamanartham cha mantram trayambakam japet. To give relief from death or death-like problems or death-like worries or worries of death, also do the mantra Trayambakam. So do Trayambakam Vajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam, that mantra. Mrityunjaya mantra also he is suggesting to do, apart from Indra mantra. Prarthayetya tato devam abhishekaartham adarat. And then pray to the Lord with abhishekam etc. With respect you do the puja. Bhadrasanopa Vishtasya Sastri Putrasya Mantravit. Bhadrasanopa Vishtasya. So he should be seated in Bhadrasanam. I am not exactly sure what Bhadrasanam means, like Siddhasanam, Vajrasanam, there are so many asanas. There must be some asanam called Bhadrasanam. I don't know exactly what that is. If you don't know, just sit. Don't sit in a very weird way, just sit in a... Bhadra literally means auspicious, nice. So sit with a nice posture. Bhadrasanopa Vishtasya. Of the person who is seated in Bhadrasanam, Sastri Putrasya Mantravit. Sastri Putrasya. Along with the wife and along with the child. So basically husband, wife and the child should be seated nicely. Mantravit. The one who knows the mantra, basically the priest. Acharyo, the priest. Yajmanasya Kuryat Ditya Abhishechanam. So the priest who did the homam, at the end of it, with the water in the kalasha, he should basically do abhishekam. Pritya means with affection. So he should not be doing like, oh, okay, I'm running late, my God, let me finish it. So he's saying, do it with affection. Okay. वस्त्रांतरित कुंभाभ्याम स्नापयेत् तदनन्तरम. वस्त्रांतरित कुंभाभ्याम स्नापयेत् तदनन्तरम. What does it mean? What does he translate it as? He dodges it. He doesn't explicitly translate. This is actually not very clear. Vastra antarita kumbhabhyam. That literally means with the parts that are in the vastras. Vastrantarita kumbhabhyam snapaye tadanantaram. So after this kalasham, after abhishekam with the water from the kalasham, he is saying with the other kumbhas which are wrapped with the cloth. Basically, so there are some other kumbhas that are wrapped with the cloth. One possibility is, because he said grahadi yajnam, even though he did not mention it specifically here. So what you can think is, there are also navagrahas. So even though this is basically for the Rakshasa, Indra and Jaladevatas, the main deity of the nakshatra, Adevata and Pratyadevata, you could also have 9 kalashas for the navagrahas, for example. So, and of course, all those kalashas have different color clothes wrapped on it. For example, sun's kalasha will have red cloth, moon's kalasha will have white cloth, and so on. Jupiter's kalasha will have yellow cloth. So it could basically mean that first you do with the main kalasham, the Rakshasa, Indra and Jaladevatas, and then with all other graha kalashas. That's what it could be meaning. Shuklam varadharastadvat Shweta gandhanulepanah. So Shuklambaradharastadvat. So there should be, and then after this bath with this auspicious water, they should wear white clothes, and then they should smear themselves with Shweta gandham. You could say basically white color auspicious material. That's what Shweta gandham literally means. You could basically smear with vibhuti. So wipe yourself after the abhishekam, wear white clothes, and then wear vibhuti, and then what do? Dhenum payasvinim dadjad acharyayata shaktitah. Dhenum payasvinim dadjad acharyayata shaktitah. Ritvibhyo dakshinam dadjad brahmanas chapi bhojayet. So dhenum payasvinim means a cow which gives milk. Payasvini means one that possesses milk. So basically a milk giving cow should be given to the acharya based on the capability. He says Shaktitah means based on the capability, which means maybe if you can afford, give 100 cows. If you can't afford, maybe give 1 cow. Ritvibhyo dakshinam dadjat. To all the Ritviks who were reading the Veda mantras during the homam, to all those dakshinam dadjat. Give some dakshina, give some donation, and then brahmana chapi bhojayet, and all the brahmins, please feed them. Yat papam yaccha me tausthyam sarvagatreshvavasthidam tatsarvam bhakshayadhyatvam lakshmim pushtincha vardhaya. Whatever sin, whatever bad state is there in the entire body of the child and parents because of this dosham, tatsarvam bhakshayadhyatvam. You get rid of all that by feeding Brahmins and feeding by giving dakshina to Ritviks. Tvam, you. Lakshmi pushtimcha vardhaya. And increase your wealth and increase your pushti. Pushti means your energy, etc. Anena evatu mantrena samyak ajyam vilokayet. With this mantra, samyak ajyam vilokayet. So, possibly there is a mantra like this. Just like, see, the thing is, Parashara never tells Maitreya in the, basically saying you. He always says, one who has this dosha should do this, like this. So he always uses the third person. He doesn't use the second person. But here he is using the second person. Tvam, Lakshmi Pushtincha Vardhaya. So Probably this is a shloka or some kind of mantra that you are supposed to recite. Because later he says, Anayana evadu mantrena. Thus with this mantra he says. So obviously there is some mantra which goes as Yat papam yatya medosthyam sarvagatreshvavastidam tatsarvam bhakshayajyatvam lakshmim pushtincha vadhaya. So you are praying to the God. Whatever is there in my body, please remove it and please you increase my wealth and increase my pushti. So basically, I don't know if there is a different mantra or this shloka itself is considered to be a mantra. So if you don't have an alternative mantra, you can just repeat this shloka. The 19th verse in Parasara Santanam's version. If you take Santanam's version, chapter 93, verse 19, that should be repeated a few times. Molagandodbhavasyaivam sarva papam pranasyati. Thus, all the sins of the person who is born in Mula Gandanta are destroyed if you do this procedure. So one common theme you can find is any of these doshas. The main theme is the Nakshatra Devata is the key. You pray to the Nakshatra Devata, and of course you also pray to the Navagrahas, and you always do Triambakam Yajamahe, which is a very useful mantra, the Mrityunjaya mantra. Because these are all very inauspicious combinations which can show either death or death-like suffering. Yes.
I missed first part, like Mula, any param or all param?
He didn't say. He just said Abhukta Mula. So obviously he expects you to go back to the previous chapter in which he defined how many degrees, how many ghatis.
Okay, 9.
Yeah. So go back to that number and find out how many ghatis. But it's a considerable part of Mula.
What is that? He didn't talk about four doors. What is that?
So you are getting a pandal made
Right.
in front of your house or in your backyard or in your side yard or whatever. So in the east or north from your house, you just get a pandal made. So like you can it's like you put a tent. If you are doing it here, you can just put up a tent. And he says there should be 4 doors. Basically there should be openings on all the 4 directions, so that wind can come from all the 4 directions. So it should not be like it's closed in 3 directions and only one direction is open. There should be some kind of opening in all the 4 directions, so that wind can come and enter from all the directions. And that is where you put all the kalashas. You put a pitham, like you could put a table or something, and then you put these kalashas, and around it you put small kalashas for all the grahas. So you make this arrangement and you do puja there, and in front of it, outside the pandal, you put the hom kundam, and then you do the homam afterwards. Okay.
Interestingly, one of my friend asked, his daughter is born in Mula, etc. So he is in California.
I see. Yeah, if they are in California, weather will be nice. So here in winter it will be difficult to do outside, but there you can do throughout the year. Any questions so far?
But he has already seen her daughter.
Okay, so we can't undo that. You can't say Control Z. No, that's too bad. I just meant Control Z, not Control undo. Just undo the act. You can't undo the act. So if the baby is born in the beginning of Mula, just check how many ghatikas into Mula the baby was born, and see if the dosha actually applies. If it applies, then suggest that they should do some shanti. If nothing, just do a Navagraha Homam or Mahamrityunjaya Homam. If nothing, if they can't follow all the procedures given here, like have a Nirriti, have an idol of Nirriti, have an idol of Indra, have an idol of Jaladevatas, and then offer, even though he only mentioned Indra's mantra, obviously you can understand that Nirriti's mantra also has to be offered in the fire. And obviously Jaladevatas mantra, maybe Apsume, Somo, Abhavi, Nantarvi, Shivani, or some other mantra of Jaladevatas also you are probably expected to offer into the fire. So basically those are the 3 main devatas, but he also in the beginning said Grahadi Yajnam, the homa for Grahas, etc. So obviously 9 planets are also covered, and he also mentioned Triambakam Yajamahe. So a lot of mantras are basically implied. So if you can't do all those things, at least just get a Navagraha Homam done, or get a Mrityunjaya Homam done with the Triambakam Yajamahe mantra.
So he's strengthening the gods. You will see, Nirriti is like a demon, right?
Yeah.
But he's saying all the white so many times. So strengthening the godly nature.
Yeah, he is basically cooling down the deity. And the thing is, if you offer the Veda mantra of the deity, even if it's a demon, you will basically not incur any problems. The Veda mantra will only make the demon more favorable to you.
You know, especially in Tamil Nadu, people they match horoscopes of marriage.
Yeah?
If a girl is born in the Mola Nakshatra, it's very difficult to get married. They try to avoid it. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah. That's unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Is Muchandra
Is the-
Homam just reciting the Muchandra mantra for 108 times? That's what it is. I'm just asking. I didn't know what.
Well,
my interpretation.
not exactly. There is more to it. But that is the crux basically. All other things are preparation for it. The main crux is just doing the Mrityunjaya mantra in the fire.
Can you open one of the chart to see if there is a Maladosha for that?
Which chart?
But it's inside if you want to.
Okay. Feel free. Think that is your computer.
Actually, we have some questions from yesterday's
Okay.
conference.
Does it feel like yesterday? Does it still feel like yesterday?
This one, 400, right? 0 at 40.
Oh yeah. This is a deep Gandanta.
Huh?
This is a very deep Gandanta.
Because there's always a confusion for this.
1.7 degree of Sagittarius, we said.
Pardon me? Moon is at 0 degrees 4 minutes Sagittarius.
But he always has a confusion whether he should consider Mula or Anuradha.
Oh,
I mean,
Anuradha.
Just
Jyestha. Why?
because he not very sure. He sometimes thinks he comes back and tells me that it is in Jesa and
No, forget Jyestha. Time wise, see the thing is if you use a different Panchanga where there is a 1 degree difference, for example, there are Panchangas that are even 1 degree different from Lahiri, then of course you may get Jyestha. But let us ignore all that. For us, Lahiri is the one, and the error is, let's say, not more than 4 minutes backwards. So we can basically take this for granted. The only issue is, let's see how much time is needed.
even if the time
No.
is off by say 10-15 minutes.
Okay, actually that is a good point. Let's see how much leeway we have for moon. 7 minutes earlier, the nakshatra would change.
Suppose in 10 minutes you fill into Jesa Nakshatra.
Right. That is a good point. But now, do you know that this time is accurate? Have you rectified this time? Okay, in that case it could be Jyestha or Mula. Bottom line is, either case it is a very deep Gandanta.
Either case, it's a
Either case is in trouble. Which trouble? Jyestha trouble or Mula trouble, you have to find out.
but from the nature of the person and how he behaves and his kind
Thus,
of thing, you can
from that to say the nakshatra is very difficult. That is very difficult. But what you can do is, see, Scorpio and Sagittarius are two totally different rasis. So you can look at the chances at the time of important events, and you can use that to find out whether Sagittarius makes more sense or Scorpio. Yeah, that's a good point actually. You have a point. So in such border cases, you have to consider moon in both the signs. Any other questions? You said you had a
But
question
we
from
can't
the last
doubt, right? For example, somebody gives the time.
Yeah.
If you see that it's Mula, Gandanta,
no, because
we cannot rectify it to be Jyestha, right?
No, you can see. You see that moon is such beginning of Sagittarius, fact beginning. See at the very beginning of Sagittarius, right? Click on moon. See how much leeway you have.
7 days.
When will moon change sign in Rasi? He changes 2 days 5 hours later or 7 minutes 12 seconds earlier. Now is the 7 minutes 12 seconds earlier possible? Moreover, if there is a small error in the Ainamsha, it's no longer 7 minutes 12 seconds, it's probably even 5 minutes. If there is a small error in the Ainamsha which can account for 1 minute out of those 4 minutes. So you just have 3/4 of that, 3/4 of 7 minutes. So it may come down to even something like 5 minutes. So if you are not sure that the time is really accurate, it could end up being in Jyestha. And even forgetting the Ainamsha, assuming that Ainamsha is perfect, still 7 minutes is quite possible. 10-minute error is quite reasonable. So that is why you should consider both Scorpio and Sagittarius in this case. Okay. Any other questions?
Now, what do you want to see in that case? We see the transits considering natal moon in Scorpio or Sagittarius and
Yeah. Look at, for example, transits when the person got married, or transits when a big promotion happened, or transits when he had an accident. See those events. Look for some combinations which can explain it.
do a D9 rectification if he is
Pardon me?
married or.
Oh yeah. Then irrespective of the moon, you can just rectify the time. You could look at Navamsa, Dashamsa, etc. And if you are sure that Lagna has to be between 12 degrees and 12.5 degrees, let us say, because you have rectified suppose you have rectified the Dvadashamsa and Dashamsa, and you know that it has to be between 12 and 12.5 degrees, and that means, let us say, the error backwards cannot be more than 2 minutes. Let us say, you are all set.
No, that I have already rectified. With marriage, I have seen.
Okay, so in that case, you don't have to consider moon.
With transits and
No, you don't have to do that. For moon to go back to Scorpio, you need to change the time by 7 minutes. Or even if there is a small error in Ainamsa, maybe one arc minute, still it's like 4-5 minute error. And if you are sure that this is within 2-3 minutes, then basically that possibility doesn't arise anymore. So you don't have to worry about moon being in Scorpio. Take moon in Sagittarius in that case.
Actually, if he is married, according to one of the class from Narayana, Venus is 12 from Lagna, so it is not possible to get married, right? Venus in one of the class, he said that if Venus is 12 from Lagna, marriage is not possible.
That's a drastic statement if you ask me.
because we are taking Venus being in 6th from 7, that's why we are saying that.
Yeah.
He's
But that's it.
D9.
Navamsa is.
Venus is
Right. He's saying Venus in 12th means in 6th from 7. That's what he's saying. Yeah.
7, that's
Yeah.
in Navamsa, right? Yeah, in Navamsa.
Yeah, in Navamsa.
I know that.
The thing is, that's a very drastic statement. Just to say Venus in the 12th, no marriage. That's a very, very drastic statement. It's not conducive, but it doesn't mean no marriage. And moreover, even though Venus is in the 12th, he is after all Lagna Lord. Lagna Lord in 12th. So Lagna Lord in 12th doesn't really harm 12th that much. Even though he is debilitated, he is also retrograde in the Navamsa. So he is debilitated and retrograde. So it's not that bad.
check again. I'll check again.
Yeah, check again. Check again if your rectification makes sense. Any other?
I want to get up with you home or Sudarshan home.
Okay, you want to
See my.
see your chart, okay?
If you can.
Yeah. Do you have his chart?
We will have question.
Yeah, I do. One question before you change this.
Okay. Yes.
Suppose in this case, if moon happens to now fall into say Jyeshtha,
Yeah.
then do we do Mula Shanti or do we do the Nakshatra Shanti? Otherwise we can't go because Mula Shanti
Then do-
is very exhaustive.
Right. In that case, just do Jyeshtha Shanti. If you think it's Jyeshtha, do Jyeshtha Shanti.
The Nakshatra-
Yeah. Just Nakshatra Shanti. Yeah.
These are all the general questions, not we looked at one chart.
Yeah.
The question is like we see Amsha rulers for the Dashamsha. We see if this Saturn is in Indramsha means a great power. Like that. So we look from Rashi chart or in the D10 Dashamsha. In Amsha rulers you can go change the Amsha rulers to D10.
Yeah.
So we look at the 10th house in the
Okay, fine. So your question is, when you look at the Amsha ruler, do you look at the Amsha ruler of the 10th lord of D10 or 10th lord of Rashi chart? That's your question, right?
I remember in Rashi, so but we had a dispute.
Okay. Who's more important? Actually, the one in Rashi, is he important at all?
That is not a whole karma.
The 10th of the 10th, what is the 10th house of the Rashi chart?
That is physical representation.
That is basically the work that is being done at the physical level, the work that is being carried out at the physical level. So that is what the 10th lord of Rashi chart represents. So if he is in Indramsha, that shows some message. If he is in Varunamsha, that has some message. So that is important. But why not Dashamsha itself? The 10th lord of Dashamsha actually throws more light on the work that you are doing. Because Dashamsha is the chart of the work that you are doing. Whereas 10th lord of Rashi, he is not just the work that you are doing. He is also, for example, if you take the 7th house, it's the 4th from 7th. So it's your wife's happiness. It is the 10th house is your father's wealth. it is your mother's relationship with other people, it is your, if you take your children for example, it is their enemies, it is your niece, so many things it shows, right? It's not just the work that you do. Whereas if you go to Dashyamsha, it is the chart of the work that you do. So the Lagna Lord there shows the beginning, the seed of the work that you do. The 6th Lord shows what kind of obstacles you overcome. The 11th Lord in the Dashyamsha shows what kind of fulfillment you enjoy of your goals. 7th Lord shows what kind of relationships you maintain. So let's say 7th Lord is in Varunamsha. Varuna is conducive to business. And let's say a planet, either 7th Lord or some planet associated with the 7th house is in Varunamsha. Suppose a planet occupies the 7th and occupies Varunamsha. It's very favorable for business. Suppose a planet is associated with the 5th house or maybe A5 or maybe Ghatika Lagna, and let's say the planet is in Indramsha. So the planet is already showing some kind of position and he is in Indramsha. So it shows a lot of fame, popularity, influence, etc. So like that, even though the 10th Lord of Rashi chart is important, he is the seed basically for the Dashyamsha. So you should consider him. But most important is Dashyamsha itself. Various lots of various houses in Dashyamsha, what amshas they are placed in. That is even more important.
And occupant also, right?
Pardon me? Occupants also, yeah. Yeah.
And second question is,
Yeah.
in Dashyamsha, if the second Lord in 12th house, it is depletion of resources.
If the second Lord is in?
If the second house Lord is
Yeah.
in 12th house,
Yeah.
from the Lagna,
Yeah.
is it a depletion of resources or the person have resources in the foreign land?
Okay, what do you think?
I think it is depletion of the resources.
Okay. Why?
Because second Lord is in is the loss of that.
12th house is not necessarily depletion. 12th house is putting things to use, giving away. Putting to use also. And
Investment in real estate, investment
yeah,
in-
second house is basically the resources that you have. So his agenda is to make him resourceful. The second Lord, he never wants to deplete the person. His actual agenda is to give resources to the person, right? Do you agree with that or not?
Right.
But he is placed in the house where he is entrusted with the job of depleting him. So he will give him resources that he can't use. So he will give him resources, he will have a lot of wealth, but he can't use it because it's stuck somewhere. He basically invests a lot. So it doesn't really show depletion, it only shows having a lot of wealth but not being able to use it. Basically investing it or maybe giving it away to people. A lot of money will be coming and also it will be going. So that is what he shows. But taking the second house as reference is basically Lagna Lord in the 11th house. It's not at all bad. So for second house, he is in the 11th house of fulfillment. So and he is basically the Lord of the first house in the 11th house of fulfillment. So as far as wealth and resources are concerned, the planet will never harm them. He will only increase them. But even as they are increased, the person will not be able to enjoy them that much.
See, in other way, it doesn't have resources.
He has, but he is not able to use them because he is not able to benefit from them in a particular way. Because he is always investing them. It shows lot of wealth but also investments, rotation basically, money rotation. Money always in rotation.
Suppose if it is exalted, then he likes to do it.
Maybe he does it with lot of enjoyment. Maybe if he is debilitated, he does it out of helplessness perhaps.
But it doesn't have to be money though.
It doesn't have to be money. It can be any resource.
Any resource.
Any resource that he is always committed. The person may have 10 cars, but they may always be in some other people's garages. Friends may be borrowing.
So you won't be able to enjoy that benefit of
You may not be able to enjoy it that much. Your relationship with that resource is basically that of renunciation. Not exactly, but
yeah, exactly.
figuratively speaking.
If he is referring to Dashyamsha and second Lord in 12th, can we take it as at workplace or in his karma he has got all?
Yeah, this is basically work, relating to workplace. All the resources, he is very resourceful at the workplace, but
He cannot. Nobody comes to rescue.
yeah, he is not able to get the maximum benefit out of the resources. The resources are always committed to something or the other.
If 12th Lord is in
So basically he is very resourceful but experiences a crunch of resources always because they are always on the move. Yes.
Is other way.
12th Lord in the second house. Okay.
his agenda is also.
His agenda is to make the person lose, make the person give up things. And he is placed in the house that is That is basically that shows resources. So what will he do? You are telling the planet, okay, give him some resources, but his agenda is make him lose everything. So what will he do? It's not very auspicious for the second house.
It should be the same thing as what second lord in
But the thing is, where you occupy is not what you actually do. It is what you are asked to do. The house you own is what you want to do. So what you want to do is more important than what you are asked to do. The final result is a blend of both. So if you, for example, want to learn, and I place you, I don't let you come to the class. I say Seshu is a bad student, I don't want him in the class. You stay home. Still you may learn something because your agenda is to learn. Right? On the other hand, suppose you don't want to learn. I bring you and make you sit here. Still you will be thinking of something. And you will not learn. So, like that basically. The house owned by the planet is what the planet likes to do. What the planet's agenda is, inherent agenda is. And the house occupied by the planet is what is asked to do. What kind of resources are placed at the command of the planet. A planet in the second house, it has all the resources of the person at its command. The planet, to implement, to further its agenda, the resources given to it by God, when he placed that planet in the second house, is basically all your resources are at the planet's command. And what does the planet want to do? It wants you to not have anything. It wants you to give up things. So, basically you will end up losing your money, giving up your money, not having enough money. Where
he will have all the resources, but he won't use them.
if the planet wants to give resources, the planet has the ability to give the resources. I am not saying you have the resources, I am saying planet has the resources.
No, the planet.
Wait. If a planet is in sixth house, the resource at the planet's command is giving you enmity. That is a resource at the planet's command. I am not saying that is your resource, that is planet's resource to further its agenda. And what is the planet's agenda? Based on it, it will either use the resources at its disposal or not use them efficiently. You understand what I am saying? So if a planet is at the in the second house, it doesn't mean you have resources. It means your resources, your wealth is what the planet has at its command to further its agenda. Suppose the planet is second lord in second house. Then its agenda is to give you a lot of money, give you a lot of resources. And your resources are at planet's command because it's in the second house.
It will make use of.
So it will make use of those and it will give you a lot of resources. Whereas if the planet's agenda is to rob you of the resources, let us say, to make you lose things, and he is told, okay, these are all the things you can give to Seshu. God comes and tells the planet, okay, you are placed in the second house of wealth. So all this money, see, I am giving you a blank check. You can withdraw from this bank account and give to Seshu if you want when your Dasha comes. And the planet says, or if Antardasha, God says, yes, Dasha or Antardasha or Pratyadasha comes, you give these things to Seshu. But the planet thinks, why do I want to give? I don't want to give anything. I want him to lose. So I won't give. So it won't give. Whereas the planet owning the second house, he wants to give you wealth. His agenda is to give you wealth. You place him in the 12th house and say, okay, you know what? Your job is to make him lose things. Then he says, well, I don't really want to do that. So I want to give him wealth. So I will give him wealth which basically he has to keep spending, keep investing and donating, etc. So that is the difference between the two. So always it's a blend of two results, but remember that the house owned is your actual agenda, what you would rather do, and the house is occupied is what you are forced to do basically.
But in Seshu's case, the second lord Saturn is in second house but is retrograde and it doesn't give money.
Second lord in second house with Jupiter also, debilitated Jupiter, yeah.
There's another thing, I was just remembering just a networking example, like what you were saying, the Rashi chart will be at like...
We'll continue after pause. We'll be back after a commercial break. Okay, we are back after the non-commercial break. Okay, Seshu.
I was just remembering an example when the Rashi and the Dashamsha thing.
Yeah.
Rashi is like at a networking layer, it's like a physical layer which can carry all kinds of protocols and everything that will go through it. Whereas the individual charts are like upper layer applications like your mail application or this and
Your SNMP, your this, your that.
whatever.
Yeah. Those who understand something about networking may have appreciated Seshu's analogy.
Those are application layers.
Yeah, his analogy is Rashi chart is like the physical layer basically, physical transport layer. And then in the physical transport layer you are just putting various bits in, bits out. And then those could represent so many other things depending on your application layer, depending on your protocol layer. So if you may be doing SNMP, you may be doing some TCP data, you may be doing some IP data, you may be doing some UDP, you may be doing something else. So all that is basically various divisional charts. So that is the nice analogy Seshu gave. Now, if you don't understand the analogy, go and do a master's in communication. Then you will understand astrology better.
In Vimshamsha D20.
Yeah.
So, for example, some in the Vimshamsha is something like spiritual.
Not something like it is spirituality. Yes. Let's not be vague. Let's be very clear about at least the basics.
Yeah, it is spiritual.
Yes.
So in that case, should we consider like Saturn in the Lagna?
Yeah.
Saturn in Lagna is like is in Manakara.
Yeah.
So should we consider all those points?
Yeah. Bottom line is in Manakarka Sthana is bad always, irrespective of which divisional chart. So that result should always be considered. But in addition, if Saturn is in Lagna, he reflects on the personality of the person. And a Saturnine personality for spiritual pursuit is not at all a bad thing.
Right, that's what I meant to know.
So basically Saturn in Lagna in some other divisional chart, for example in Hora chart, is not the same as Saturn in Lagna in, let's say, Vimshamsha. So you should consider the nature of the planet and the nature of the divisional chart, nature of the matter shown by the divisional charts and the compatibility. You should consider that definitely.
In the Vimshamsha, fifth lord in sixth house.
Yeah.
So the fifth is Gemini, Mithuna Lagna, and then Saturn in Lagna. And then the eighth house they have Rahu and Ketu, and fifth lord in sixth house.
Okay, Venus in Manakarka, okay.
So in that case, that's another question. Like Venus is in Manakarka, but he is more devoted to Sri Rama, like Sri Ram, Vishnu Avatara. Like. So how I'm trying to understand how.
Is there any link of the fifth house with Mercury or Sun or somebody? You said Sri Rama. Fifth is aspected by Mercury. Okay. Okay, so that is what I wanted to hear. So the thing is, see, Mercury shows Vishnu, and Mercury is, you said, Sun. So that can show exalted Sun, that too, in this case. So Mercury with exalted Sun can show Rama. So Rama Bhakti is explained, but the fifth lord is the primary controller. So why Grahadrishti gave result? Why didn't the fifth lord himself give result? That may be because fifth lord is weak, he is in Manakarka Sthana. So fifth house is basically being either that shows fifth house being destroyed or fifth lord not being able to discharge fifth house results. So Venus being in the sixth house, his influence on the fifth house is basically not giving result. Otherwise there would have been lot of bhakti shown by Venus, which can be Shiva or which can be Lakshmi. So that would have been there too. But because Venus is so weak, you are looking for who are there in the fifth house or who are aspecting the fifth house. So that is how Vishnu and Rama came into the scene.
Even in Rashi chart in fifth house, Mercury and Sun.
I see.
So can
Mercury and Sun are where?
we in fifth house?
That is also conducive. But it's not basically the trump card. It is also a contributing factor. But this is trump card. In the Vimshamsha, fifth house being aspected by Sun and Mercury is the trump card.
Where are Sun and Mercury in Vimshamsha?
Aries. Gemini is the Lagna, Aries has Sun, Mercury, and we said Mars also. And Saturn is in Gemini, Rahu, Ketu are in Ketugan, and Venus is in Scorpio. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Only 2 planets are left now. Sun and Moon we don't know. Moon and Jupiter we don't know. All other planets we know now.
Just that's a doubt. Is Rahu the eighth lord in fourth, right? Rahu.
What, 9th lord in 8th?
Oh yeah, 19
Yeah, 1 9th lord is in 8th, 1 9th lord is in Lagna.
Both are good as far as Vimshamsha.
No, it is different question actually. The question is if the Rahu is the eighth lord, the sixth lord in 12th.
Okay, you are not talking about this chart anymore. Okay, go ahead.
This is a question only. These are
If you lay down.
bit-wise questions.
Okay.
Like if 6th Lord and 12th Rahu is good. That's what.
Yeah, good, very good.
Thinking Viparit Raja Yoga.
Yeah, it's good. It's very auspicious. Depends on other planets with him.
And also the exchange is also.
That is even better. 6th and 12th Lord exchange is good.
In which is not
But if the 6th and 12th Lord who are exchanging houses also have the 9th Lord or 10th Lord or somebody along with them, it spoils the Viparit Raja Yoga. If only Dusthana Lords are involved in exchange or conjunction, it's very auspicious. Yeah. Any other questions?
One last question before we
No, don't have to say last, keep asking. You don't have to be apologetic about asking questions. Go ahead.
we were talking about last week on this. For seeing the acquisition on a person.
Acquisition on a person, what do you mean?
If you say you accuse somebody,
Accusation, okay, I heard it as acquisition.
not acquisition.
Like an acquisition of a company, okay.
No.
I wondered how you acquire a person, okay.
Like
Okay.
you donate somebody.
Acquisition, yeah.
Acquisition.
Acquisition.
Now, if somebody is accused, what do we see for him? The 6th house, or do we see the
Okay,
8th house, or
very good question. When somebody accuses you of what? What is under attack?
because
Your character.
then I was coming to 5th house also, because
So many houses may be involved, and also it depends on what you are accused of. Suppose you are accused of amassing lot of money illegally, it is a second house matter also. But in general, because your second house relating to the second house, you basically have a lot of money, but you are accused to have amassed it illegally by cheating people, let us say. Then there has to be some influence on the second house,
with
Rahu, etc. But what I am saying is, forget the specifics. In general, accusation is basically a blot on your character. Blot on your
character and fame.
inherent character and fame. The house for that is 10th house. 5th house is popularity.
Popular.
Popularity is different from good name. If you are, how you conduct in the society. Your conduct in the society is from the 10th house. So this is basically a blot on your conduct. Of course, if there is a link to the 5th house, this may take away your followers. You may have a lot of followers, but this bad name may make them walk away from you. But that is a different matter. But the bad name itself is from the 10th house. Just like good name itself is from the 10th house. 10th house, that is why one of the names Parasara uses for the 10th house is Mana. Mana means basically respect. Respect and character.
It's in Rasi chart.
It's pardon me?
In Rasi.
Whatever chart you are talking about. In general, if you are looking at things in the Rashi chart. So 10th house is the house of your character, your overall respect, your overall name. That is why there is, I forget the name of the yoga. If the 10th house from Lagna, Moon and maybe Sun, no, I think only Lagna and Moon. If the 10th house from Lagna and Moon has only benefics, no malefics, there is a name for that yoga, Amal Yoga, I think. Yeah, Amal Yoga. There is a yoga called Amal Yoga. The definition of that is 10th house from Lagna and the 10th house from Moon being unafflicted by malefics and containing benefics. That is Amal Yoga. The result of the yoga is the person has unblemished reputation. So when I use the word reputation here, I am not talking about following and fame like in power. You have power over people, you have influence over people. You call people, you just make one phone call, 100 people will be lined up. You want to organize something, you tell somebody, 1,000 people will come. That kind of popularity, following and the command and the power that you command among other people, that is 5th house. 10th house is your overall popularity, overall what image you have, not necessarily image, what kind of name you have, what kind of, it has a link to your conduct in the society. 10th house is overall your activities in the society. That is why that decides your overall respect level in the society. So that is the important house. So if you see any influence of Rahu, for example, on the 10th house or on Arudha Lagna, if there is some link of Rahu with the Arudha Lagna and 10th house, you can expect that there will be some accusation or some scam that the person will get involved in.
It also can be a false accusation, right? It doesn't have.
It can be. Can be.
Then who will show the false in that case? How do you decide? Because if there is a Rahu influence on Ardha Lagna or in 10th house in this case,
Yeah.
then suppose it is false, how do we know whether that accusation that was accused falsely or...
Okay, so now you want to distinguish between a false accusation and a good accusation.
Because
And
someone comes to me saying, I am accused of this, and what is happening in this case?
Yeah.
So even to just know whether this person is...
Okay. In that case, if you are talking about the Arudha Lagna, that is basically the image. Just the image. Suppose Rahu afflicts Arudha Lagna, the 10th from Arudha Lagna. It only shows a reflection of the image, period. It's just an accusation. Suppose the 10th house from Lagna itself contains Rahu or contains some male fix aspected by Rahu. That shows actually the person engaged in a bad conduct, conducting himself in a poor way. So that is a genuine accusation. That results in a genuine accusation.
Rahu's influence on the 10th house, it can lead to this kind of accusations.
Exactly. Rahu's influence on 1st and 10th houses, that is important for accusation. If it is from Arudha Lagna, it is just a mere accusation. If it is from 10th house, it is actually the person doing something bad. If it is both, then the person did something bad and he is also, if there is a link with Arudha Lagna, also 10th house from Lagna, the person is basically, the person did engage in something bad and also it came out. Also, if the 10th from moon is afflicted, then there may not be a big scandal, but the person is troubled by it.
So the mental...
Yeah, the person's mind basically is troubled. So let us say Arudha Lagna is not afflicted, the 10th from Arudha Lagna is not afflicted, but still the 10th from moon is afflicted, let us say. 10th from Lagna and 10th from moon is afflicted, let us say. 10th from Lagna is being aspected by Rahu and Mars is there, let us say, and 10th from moon contains Rahu. Then the person may do something bad and he may feel that the whole world basically doesn't like him for that. Something like that. Whereas from Arudha Lagna things may be fine. So world may not really care, but still he is guilty.
It is 10th
So
from moon.
10th from moon.
Or moon itself.
Or moon itself.
Rahu transit on
Moon, Rahu afflicting moon or 10th from moon containing Rahu. That is why the 10th from moon and the 10th from Lagna, those two were defined in Amala Yoga. Both being pure, without any affliction, then the person has unblemished image, unblemished reputation.
So when there is no plan...
Even if there is, your reputation is not blemished in the minds, eyes of people, but it's blemished in your own mind. That's a blemish too. So when moon, the 10th from moon and 10th from Lagna are both clean, neither happens basically. You haven't done anything wrong and you don't feel that there is a blemish on your reputation. You are very peaceful in that case.
So when you say no affliction, there is no planets in those two houses.
No, not Parasara. The definition of this yoga is, actually I think it's from Parasara only. The definition of this yoga is no malefics and only benefics.
No
Natural benefics should be there and natural malefics should not be there. Suppose you take this chart. How is the 10th from moon? 10th from moon is empty, but Saturn is aspecting it. Whereas 10th from Lagna has Venus. Of course Rahu is aspecting it. So there is no Amala Yoga here. The perfect Amala Yoga is only benefics occupying, and even empty is not good.
occupying or with aspects also you can say.
No, wait. Only benefics occupying and only benefics aspecting. That is the perfect Amala Yoga. And irrespective of the aspects, at least if only benefics are occupying, there should be at least one benefic in the 10th from Lagna, at least one benefic in the 10th from moon, and no malefics in either. That is secondary. Though not perfect, it is as good. That kind of Amala Yoga. And in this case, there is no Amala Yoga. It's a very powerful yoga. It shows somebody who has clean reputation. Nobody dares to accuse him. Pardon me?
Manadhana.
Yeah.
So Rahu aspects 5th house also, is it?
Yeah, he aspects 5th house. 5th, 7th, 9th, and also 2nd.
When we consider, like for example, Lagna doesn't have any planet, but the moon has got moon with other planets and aspected by another two planets. So we consider, we read the chart by taking moon as a reference or Lagna.
Yeah. Yes.
See, moon is strong.
Moon is strong. Basically, he has an active mind. So how his mind basically looks at things becomes a very important part of who he is. A strong moon shows a person with an active mind, whose mind is very, very active. So in that case, and Lagna is basically the seat of intelligence. And houses from that, they don't become unimportant, but the thing is, if moon is important, how well people, the 10th from moon, for example, in that case shows his view of what he is doing. The 5th from moon is his view of his popularity, his view of how much power he commands. The 6th from moon is his view of how much enmity he has, how many enemies he has, what kind of enemies he has. So these are all basically his views on the world, and they are important because he has strong views. He has a very strong mind, not strong but very active mind. So it becomes very important.
In this particular case, if
Yeah.
10th from moon is,
Thank you.
if 10th from moon indicates his mind thinking in the direction that
Yeah,
we are talking
it's
about.
basically the karma of the mind.
Karma. So do we then suggest to him to pray to, suppose Rahu is,
Yeah, suppose somebody is unhappy with career, and let's say the 10th from moon has, let's say, Mars with Rahu, and let's say Mars Antardasha is running right now, and he is unhappy about career. For all you know, it may have to just do with those planets being in the 10th from moon. So you can suggest the remedy. You can suggest, say, Narsimha, Subramanya, Kartikeya. So moon lagna should not be ignored. Traditionally, we consider the moon lagna, especially when moon is strong. We do consider the moon lagna.
But if moon is second from Lagna, then that means if from Lagna, say 8th house will become 7th from moon.
Yeah.
So it will be different, right? Totally.
Yeah, it will be different. That is why you pick whichever is more important. Ideally, you can mix all, but you can pick whichever is more important. In general, stick to Lagna, but when moon is strong, like in your example, the hypothetical example you gave, if like that moon is stronger, then give more importance to moon in that case than Lagna.
Strong by planets as well as position, right? Placement.
More than placement, when you are talking about differences, because for moon there is something called exaltation, debilitation. For Lagna there isn't anything called exaltation, debilitation. So don't go by all those things. See how many planets are there and how many planets are aspecting. So suppose moon is with 3 other planets and Lagna is only with 1 planet. Moon is stronger, definitely. Any other questions?
But those planets should like not Rahu and Ketu.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That is an intelligent extension of the principles. Absolutely. Because then instead of making it strong, they make it weak. Any other points? Any other questions? Okay. Any charts that you want to see?
Want to see this?
Yes.
I want to see mind for,
Yeah. Yeah. Seshu. Okay, we'll see. Subramaniam. Is this?
no, that is not,
Okay. Oops.
should be there.
Will it be in some directory?
Is it either it's in the
Old TL.
old data or this one, either of them?
New one I already searched for session. Seshu, only Seshu is there. Or Subramaniam.
One, no, that's not it.
Now let's check here. Session. Only Seshu.
No, it's not there.
Okay.
6/13, 1949.
No, 1 second. Wait.
Sorry.
Tell me the month. June 13,
1949.
1949.
10:55 a.m.
10:55 a.m.
This is Palayam Kotai.
Palayam Kottai. Palayam Kottai.
Don't know the longitude.
That's okay. No. They are there here.
No, it's Tamil Nadu, near Kanyakumari.
77 each part.
Yeah, there is only one Palayam Kottai in India.
Yeah, that's it. Oh,
So no problem.
wow, that's amazing.
If there are 5 or 6, then we need to know which one. Okay, let's save it.
So one thing that bothered me is this,
How do you spell your last name?
Subramanian, M-A-N-A-N-I-A-N.
Okay, like this.
That's it.
Okay.
No H, no?
Yeah. Yeah. Normally Telugu people spell the Subramanya,
That's right.
but Tamil and Malayali people spell it as Subramanian. They don't have H. But the actual Sanskrit word is Brahmanya, Subrahmanya.
That's right.
Brahman, it comes from Brahman. Brahmanya, Subrahmanya. Su means good. Well,
If you add an H there.
no, that's fine. I'm not saying, but Sanskrit version is that Telugu spellings of most words like this are stricter. They strictly adhere to the Sanskrit original. But in Tamil and Malayalam, we see some change.
When they chant, they always say Subramanya, you know. they chant.
Yeah.
When you add H or not, start that Telugu will show up.
Okay.
Concern was, he said Saturn and Lagna is bad, you know. Karmaraga.
No, I didn't say anything.
No, Karnataka. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Manakar Dasthana.
Karnataka, but
What about that?
it is written actually.
Well,
I mean, in general, I'm not talking like.
so what dasha should we apply for him? You remember which dasha we were using earlier? Rishabta Samadasha. 7th Lord in Lagna. So if you use the Rishabta Samadasha, what is the dasha he is running?
He is
Saturn.
running the Sandha.
No, he is running Sandasha now. Rahu is over.
Oh, okay.
He is in Sandasha. He is running Sandasha.
Lagna Lord actually. Sun is the Lagna Lord.
Sun is the Lagna Lord, yes.
In 10th house.
No, not in-
Yeah. So he wants to do some homam. What homam will you suggest? For what purposes?
What, remember I had this fracture.
Yeah.
So, and that,
Just for health.
after this house, bought this house, we never did any Ganapati Homam too.
Hmm.
Then this, we have been having a lot of difficulties in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So we want to propagate the gods properly.
So they are having some problems after coming to this house, especially for the last 3 years. So he wants to,
Especially last year has been very bad.
particularly last year he says has been very bad.
It's in January.
Last year it is all Sunday.
So Sandasha, during Sandasha there have been problems. Does it make any sense to you? First it should make some sense to you, then we can suggest something.
Because A8 dispository is with him.
For me?
A8 dispository.
A disposited in what? Oh, okay, Mars. Yeah. But Mars is also Yokaraka. So Lagna Lord Sun and Yokaraka Mars are together. Of course, Mercury is Maraka, second Lord, he is with them, but at least they are Yokaraka. Yeah.
It really doesn't make sense that Prati from the Rasi chart.
Okay, so basically, Sun being the Lagna Lord, his agenda is to give him good health, give him a good start. With respect to health, basically, if there are health problems, basically, health is recovery, give him good health, give him good recovery, etc. That is what Sun wants. But how do you decide? Is Rasi chart all? If you are trying to see,
No, D6.
if you are specifically trying to see any injuries or any such things, any diseases, sickness, D6 you see. And in general, Navamsha is the chart that shows the fortune carried by the planet from the previous lives.
In Rasi there is one more thing, but
Yeah.
the UL is also there showing some kind of tangible loss or.
Yeah, but it can also be marriage. It's not necessarily a loss.
Get married now.
I know, but it's basically continuation of marriage. UL doesn't necessarily show a loss. And we are not just talking about loss, we are talking about big health problem basically. Broken bones.
Sun can give bones problem.
Yes, Sun can when afflicted. Not always. When afflicted, Sun is the Karaka for bones. When Sun is afflicted, he can give bone problems.
So one of the
Now,
maybe it is reflected.
yeah, we'll check the D6 and D30, but first look at Navamsha. Never ignore the Navamsha chart. In the Navamsha, how is Sun?
Sun is with Ra.
He is with Ketu. He is afflicted by the 6th Lord Ketu. That is not good. So the Lagna Lord of Rasi chart, who is the most important planet for his physical vitality, in the chart that shows blessings from past, Navamsha, he is afflicted by Ketu. Does it reduce his ability to protect him?
Right.
Your Lagna Lord, you want him to be strong in Navamsha. You don't want him to be weak. Now let us look at D6 and D30. Okay, in D6. D6 is the chart of health. How is Sun here?
Sun is beaten by Ravan.
Sun is again beaten down by Rahu and Ketu. He is eclipsed by Rahu and Ketu. So when you have Sun afflicted by Rahu and Ketu, some big problems given by can be given by Sun. Even though his agenda is to protect him, still he is so badly beaten down. His job is to protect him, but he is so badly beaten down, he may not protect him sufficiently. But still, being the Lagna Lord, at the end of the day, things will not be fatal, things will not be terrible. There is some recovery. He wants to make the person recover. And finally, let's check D30. Is Sun fine in D30?
Again it is.
Again he is afflicted by Rahu and Ketu. So Sun is eclipsed by Ketu in Navamsha, Shashtamsha and Trimshamsha. So especially in Trimshamsha, whatever sign or planet Rahu and Ketu afflict, problems relating to that are possible. So Rahu and Ketu are in Scorpio, so some fire related problems, fiery problems are possible, and they are with Sun. So some bone related problems are possible. Right? So
The Antardasa, right? It can,
pardon
only
me?
the Mahadasa, right?
Yeah.
So you usually see Antardasas,
Yes, you can see Antardasas also. So you can.
but Sun is. So how does the Mahadasa?
So when was
Lord Sun Mahadasa will affect him? These kind of negative things.
Yeah.
I thought it's mostly Antardasa will give the results of the.
Basically, Sun has the ability. If you look at all the charts, D6, D30, etc., Sun has the ability to trouble him. So the Antardasa can be either Sun himself, or it can be one of the troublemakers.
Troublemaker.
Who are the troublemakers? If you look at the Navamsha, the Shashtamsha and Trimshamsha, it is Rahu and Ketu. So can be one of them. Right?
Yeah.
Mercury is from the Rasi.
Or if you look at Rashi, the Maraka, the second lord Mercury, he is afflicting Sun. So it can be Sun. So it can be either Ketu or it can be Sun or it can be Mercury. And also if you notice, Ketu doesn't have a dasha here.
Right.
In this particular case, Ketu does not have a dasha. And if you see in Navamsha and in Rashi, Ketu is in Mercury's sign. So because he doesn't have a sign, he doesn't have a dasha, his lord, his dispositor can end up giving the result. So that way also Mercury is basically carrying Ketu's agenda. And of course his agenda is not auspicious also. If you just stick to Rashi chart. His agenda is, if you look at the Rashi chart, he is the second lord. From Sun he is the second lord, from Lagna he is the second lord. Both the ways he is a Maraka.
But will he end up giving in the order of Mercury?
No,
Sun,
Ketu,
Mars,
we are
will
talking.
he exchange the result?
Pardon me? Oh yeah.
Somebody's result?
Yeah.
Will he end up giving Mars result in this case?
That's a good point. So whose result is given by who?
It should give Mars. It should be in the order of Mercury, Sun, Mars.
Yes. Yes, that's a good point. So Mercury should be giving Mars result. So as far as Rashi chart is concerned, Mercury should be giving Mars result. But why did it happen then?
When it happened, this problem.
April 6th, 8 o'clock in the morning. First.
No, but what day?
It's Mercury.
Thursday.
Forget the day. It's basically Mercury period only. April, when did you say?
6th April
Okay.
morning around 8.
Okay. So it is Sun Mercury. So why was it Mercury?
Because
Actually, there is a parivartana between Mercury and Venus. It gets complicated.
it will become more complicated.
So if you are using the Rashi chart, it becomes really complicated. Why don't we just look at Trimshamsha or Shashtamsha? In the Trimshamsha, how is Mercury?
Mercury is in second house. He is the eighth lord.
Mercury is the 8th lord and he is in second house. He is in the Markasthana, second house. And even though he is debilitated,
Between Jupiter and Mercury, like eighth lord in eighth house.
yeah, second lord and 8th lord Parivartana is not an auspicious thing. And he is not only 8th lord from Lagna, from Sun also he is the 8th lord.
Right.
So he is basically, he is problematic.
You can give count.
Right. So, and also if you look at Shashtamsha, yes.
This is not at physical level. So
Right. Right, but we are talking about the big accident. So we are talking about D6 and D30. And if you look at D30, how is Mercury? If you look at D6. So from Lagna he is in Badhaka Sthana, something unexpected and something inexplicable. And from Sun from the Dasha Lord Sun he is Badhaka. Badhaka and also Marka Lord. Pardon me? Yeah, he is also Marka, second Lord. So there are ample weaknesses, but if you ask me, for me, in the Rashi chart, Ketu is showing all these problems in the various divisional charts, and in Rashi, physical manifestation, he is placed in the second house of Marka Sthana, And also from Sun, he is Maraka Lord. He is the 7th Lord. So that Ketu's result are just being given by his dispositor. And then all this Parivartana business, we are already talking of giving somebody else's result because he is in your house. Then we don't have to bother about all these Parivartanas, etc. So already Mercury is giving Ketu's result. So that is how I will look at it. And even Mars, if you see, from Sun he is Bhadaka. He is Maraka. In other words, if you just stick to Rashi chart, from Sun, taking the Dasha Lord Sun as Lagna, the 2nd Lord Mercury and the 7th Lord Mars are together in Lagna. So 2 Marakas are together. So it could be Mars or Mercury, both basically are problematic. And of course Ketu, because he is the 7th Lord. Venus is in the 2nd house, but he is not a big deal, because Lagna Lord in the 2nd house is not really a Maraka. You understand what I am saying? The 2nd and 7th Lords are Maraka, and malefics in 2nd and 7th houses are Marakas. So if you take Dasha Lord Sun as Lagna and analyze, Mars, Mercury and Ketu are the problem planets. And of course Ketu doesn't have a Dasha here. So his results are given by Rahu and Mercury. So Mercury, all the ways Mercury does end up, does show up as a bad planet. And now apart from Disaptati, you can also look at Vimshotri. It's not that Vimshotri should not work. So if you see Vimshotri, what Dasha is running? Saturn. So all this happened during Saturn itself. And again Saturn Mercury. I mean, the date he gave is slightly off, but my guess is it's probably Saturn Mercury. Any other points?
So his remedy should be to.
And also actually, one second. Let's take the Thithi chart.
Actually, we should see A6 also, right? A6, Aruda of 6th house, because a tangible problem.
Yes, absolutely. Very good. So how is A6?
A6 is over by
Because
Saturn.
Rahu
So
is the
Saturn
dispositor of A6.
Pardon me?
Rahu is the dispositor of A6. And Rahu
Where? Which chart?
Shashtamsha.
Shashtamsha, okay? Yeah?
He is pretty much with Sun.
Yeah?
In the Sun Antar Dasa, in some Dasa he should definitely give problem.
Mm-hmm.
So Sun Rahu can give problem.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, that is the other thing I was going to say. Sun Mercury gave this problem, but doing Sun Rahu, you have to be very careful. Yeah. It will come later. No, I'm not making any prediction here, but you should be very careful. During that time, when is it? 2010 to 2011. So around when that period is going to start, in 2010 April time frame, do a Mrityunjay Homa. Yeah. Because Sun Rahu is very, very dangerous period.
But if we in this chart, it's like A6 dispositor is Rahu and Saturn, but Saturn is in Lagna. So in general, it protects the Lagna, right?
What? No, not necessarily. Saturn in Lagna doesn't protect Lagna. It depends on his agenda. If he,
Lagna Lord,
then he protects. If Lagna Lord is in A6, there may be a small accident. He may have to give an accident, but he may make it a small one, so that the person is not harmed. But A6 Lord in Lagna is not at all good.
Okay.
So now, as per Dasapta Samdasya, it was Sandasya who has Agra on this, and who is with the Lord of A6. But if you look at Vimshotri, it was Saturn. So it was again A6 Lord who is in Lagna. So there is an A6 link. But it will be interesting, yes.
But I think I had Ashtama Shani too at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ashtama
Shani was transferring in the 8th house. Yes. Now, how was the Tithi Pravesh chart? Because it was such a big event for him, which basically changed his life for a few months.
2 months I was on president.
So, there has to be something really terrible going on in the Tithi Pravesh chart, right? There has to be. Horalad is Saturn. Okay. What was the period running? 2006, April 6, he said. So, it was Sun period. So, is there any problem with Sun? Is there any problem with Sun? Let us look at Shashtamsha, Trimshamsha, Rashi. Is Sun showing any problem? Just be honest. In the Rashi chart, he is afflicting Lagna Lord Venus. He is making the Lagna Lord Venus combust. Okay? So he can give, and Sun shows in general bone related problems. So because he is making Venus combust, there can be some bone problems. Okay, but do you really see broken bones? And what is the distance? 25 degrees, 10 degrees. Is it such a big deal? It's not such a big deal. The affliction of Venus by Sun is not such a big deal. And if you look at Shashtamsa, Sun is the 11th lord, Bhagesha, is in the 3rd house. Again, not that terrible. Right? Do you think it's terrible? No.
But he is having Rashi from Rahu Ketu.
Yeah, he is having Rashi from Rahu Ketu. Again, that's not a big deal, if you ask me. Trimshamsa, he is the 4th lord in the 5th house. So what? Do you?
Not rectified in the first state, or is it?
No. Let's not jump up and down just because we worked on it earlier. We are reasonably confident. Just because we are not able to explain something based on annual chart, this particular thing, let us not quickly jump to the conclusion that time is wrong. Maybe Dasha is wrong. Forget the Dasha now. Actually, is there a possibility of using some other Dasha apart from Tithi Ashtotri Dasha? Is there any other Dasha that is applicable in this chart? Can you tell me? Is there any other chart? If Sun is in Lagna, can you apply Shashtihayani Dasha?
Yes.
If you use that Dasha, just as an experiment, is there any, what is the Dasha running at the time of incident?
So only in Tithi Pravesha we are using, because Sun is being in Lagna.
Pardon me?
Only in Tithi Pravesha, Sun is being Lagna, we are using only for...
No. This is a generally applicable Nakshatra Dasha. Sun in Lagna, use Shashtihayani Dasha is a very universal Nakshatra Dasha, right? And not universal, sorry. It's a conditional Nakshatra Dasha that you always apply if Sun is in Lagna. Now what I am saying is, sometimes I have noticed that, I mentioned this earlier also, when a conditional Nakshatra Dasha applies in an annual chart, Tithi Ashtotri may not be working perfectly. You may want to use Drisapta Dasam Dasha, for example, if 7th lord is in Lagna. Not always. I don't know the exact criteria, but I have seen several examples where I was not happy with Tithi Ashtotri. And by using Drisapta Dasam Dasha or Shatabdika Dasha or some other variation based on the applicability criteria, just like a natal chart, I was happier. So now, Moon giving an accident, a big accident, is it possible?
Moon is here, 6th lord.
Moon is in Manakarka Sthana. Moon in the Rashi chart is in Manakarka Sthana.
Yes.
And he is in A6. There is UL and A6 etc. there. In general, A6 placed in the 8th house is not favorable. That itself shows some accident or some problem. And Moon is in Manakarka Sthana. Moon in 8th is bad. Moon in 8th is terrible. So during that period there was an accident. So it makes much better sense than Sun giving the accident. And does he have anything?
9th house.
Pardon me?
E6 in the Shashtamsa is in 9th house.
Yeah.
Of protection.
Yes. So he is basically a malefic in the Rashi chart in Manakarka Sthana, and if he is placed in the house of protection, he is not really going to protect. But does he have anything to do with, is he showing any accident or anything? Does he have anything to do with A6 or something? No. So let us leave this. How is Navamsa? Because Navamsa is the protection. Moon is the 6th lord in the 6th house. So again, that's not good. Suppose Moon was, even though he was in Manakarka Sthana in Rashi, suppose Moon was in 9th house in Navamsa, in one house, let us say, he would have protected. But now in the chart of protection, he is showing vulnerability. He is showing 6th house.
But such a big accident, why doesn't D6 have any direct link?
Pardon me?
Why doesn't D6 have any direct indication at that time? Because it's a big accident.
Yes, it's a big accident. I am also puzzled. I would have expected some strong link. But what I will say is, forget the Moon. If you just take if you forget A6, if you just take the 6th house, the 6th house is very, very dominant. If you look at the Shashtamsa, the ruler of the year Venus is in 6th house in Manakarka Sthana. He is Lagna Lord, he is in Manakarka Sthana, affected by Rahu and Ketu. In general,
Here is Saturn.
Saturn, oh sorry, I somehow remembered as Venus. Then forget, the Lagna Lord Venus. He is in Manakarka Sthana and he is with Rahu and Ketu, the planets of suddenness. And the ruler of the year Saturn is basically aspecting all of them. He is the Karaka for accident, Karaka for suffering. The Karaka for suffering, Saturn is aspecting them, and he is in Manakarka Sthana in the 6th house of accident. So A6 is not really that dominant. But 6th house itself, the house itself is very, very dominant. And moon has Argala on it. And he is in A6 in the Rashi chart. The physical, if you are talking about a physical accident, a physical event, he is in A6 in Rashi chart, and he has something to do with 6th house in Shashtamsha chart. So even though he doesn't have a link with A6, he has a link, not strong, he has a link with a very strong 6th house in Shashtamsha. And does he have anything going on in Trimshamsha? How is moon in Trimshamsha? Because this is basically the evils, punishment for evils from the past. How is he? Again, he is in A6. And he is in what A? What A?
8th house.
Yeah, he is in the 8th house. He is in Manakarkasthana. And that too he is in Akash Tattva Rashi. We earlier said, planets in Akash Tattva Rashi show the worst kind of affliction. Because if Akasha is broken, that is breaking everything basically. Akasha is the space which is filled by binding all other elements. So any affliction to Akasha is more terrible. So all these show that moon can give problems. So what was the Antardasha? It seems like moon sun. I will not be surprised if it was actually moon Jupiter, because Jupiter is the 8th lord in both Trimshamsha and Rashi. And also in Rashi, he is with 7th lord Ketu. 8th lord and 7th lord are together, Jupiter and Ketu. A terrible Marka combination. My guess is there is, for some reason, there is one day error in the calculation which is possible. So it was actually moon Jupiter, that is my guess. So the bottom line is, in this case, the Shashtihayani Dasha works better. So I am glad we looked at this example. So when you look at Tithi Ashtotri in Tithi Pravesh, in general Tithi Pravesh shows an event very well. Tithi Ashtotri is very reliable. But you may run into an odd case where you are not happy. Don't just justify and somehow come up with a logic. If you are not happy, look elsewhere. See, is Vimshottari better in this case? Or maybe is there a Vimshottari alternative, a conditional Nakshatra Dasha? If there is, see if it makes more sense than the normal Tithi Ashtotri Dasha. In this case, I would say Tithi Ashtotri makes some sense, but very, very little sense. I couldn't have predicted. Whereas, if I knew that Shashtihayani is my Dasha, if I made the determination, I could have actually said, in moon Dasha, be very careful. It is quite reasonable. Was it a vehicular accident?
No.
No, right? Okay. Then we'll not look at short Shamsa then. Because if it's vehicular, you can look at short Shamsa. Okay, now let us.
In the example here, if he came before and suppose we are now trying to look at this chart, if you have to tell him be careful from in this period,
Yeah.
we generally say be careful while driving, be careful while generally.
For that, you look at short Shamsa, you see some kind of suffering, some disease or some suffering we see. Because moon is in the 8th house, A6 is there, etc. So you look at the Shora Shamsa, see if it shows an accident.
And moon is in 4th house or having 8, so
It could actually show an accident. So I would have told him be careful when driving. That's what I would have told him if he came to me earlier. And I would have told him in general be careful. But the thing is, you could have also told him, because moon is the problem, during this period basically you could have told him to pray to Gauri, for example, or Krishna. But what should he do now? He is right now.
Ketu.
Pardon me?
Appreciate Ketu.
Why? Why Ketu? Why Ketu? Oh, we saw that sun is being afflicted by all these guys. Right. Excellent. So sun is being afflicted by Ketu in Navamsha, Trimshamsha, Shashtamsha. So for that, Ganesh is best. So get a Mahaganapati Homam done.
Okay. And what form of Ganapati?
Anybody.
But sun also represents Surya, Shiva, right?
Shiva. Sun is Shiva. Yes.
So strengthening sun also will help.
So he will also do a Mipin.
So get a Mahaganapati. Okay. So you got two good suggestions. Mahaganapati Homam and then Mahamrutyunjaya Homam. And Sudarshan Homam probably not that necessary. That is basically Mercury related. And the main problem seems to be Ketu and Sun.
Okay.
So get Mahaganapati Homam and Mahamrutyunjaya Homam done. Okay?
Now the reason why my wife, she's very afraid. She's got a lot of fears. I don't know.
Yeah.
Unknown fears.
Yeah.
So she is not mentally. That is the reason
Mm-hmm.
that we should do Sudarshan
Mm-hmm.
part of this.
Mm-hmm.
She's got unexplained fears.
Yeah.
Can we just from that statement, can we say that in her chart, we won't go there now, but in her chart the 8 from moon will be having some affliction at this time?
Maybe. Let us quickly do that. Where is L7? Jupiter is here. L7 will be here.
Right.
Gemini. Or I'll put it for you. L7 is in Gemini. So taking Gemini as Lagna, what is the period running right now?
I know my wife's horoscope also.
No, we don't want to do that now. That will be I want to stop in another minute.
Rishabdha Samadasha.
So, yeah. Oh, sorry. We are in Rishabdha Samadasha. So, if you use Rishabdha Samadasha, what is the Dasha running right now? Sun Dasha. How is Sun for wife?
Why you are using Rishabdha Samadasha?
No, but his chart, we are looking at
We are,
I know, but
yeah.
when you are considering
No, even if you are looking at father, mother, if you find that a particular conditional Dasha is applicable from his chart,
from the
you
nature,
use that for all other people. You don't see their Lagna and see if 7th Lord is in Lagna and then you don't do all that. Okay. So, how is Sun? Sun period. Sun is the 3rd Lord in 4th house. Is that good for Sukha? His agenda is 3rd house. Sukha Lopa.
we are 12 from
he is
4.
12 from 4.
Yeah, his agenda is 12th from 4. Depleting the Sukha. And he is placed in the 4th house of Sukha and he is eclipsed by Ketu. Can wife have happiness during this period? Comfort, peace, etc.? Very unlikely.
And also undiagnosable thing because of Ketu. Some kind
Yes,
of
Ketu is the 6th Lord. Sun is with the 6th Lord Ketu.
Okay.
And Ketu can show undiagnosable problems also. So, again, Sun Ketu combination. Ganapati and Mahamrityunjaya Homam if you do, it will cool her down also.
Okay.
So, do that. Just do that. And all the best. With that I will end for today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.